Imagine someone handed you a ring tonight, not an expensive ring, not a powerful one, just an ordinary-looking piece of gold. But the moment you turned it, you disappeared. Not physically, completely. No one could see you. No one could hear you. No one would even know you were there. Now ask yourself one question. What would you do first? That question is over 2,400 years old. And somehow, it's still one of the hardest questions anyone has ever asked. Because this was never meant to be a fantasy. It was meant to expose something about us. Here's the story. A shepherd is watching over his flock when a violent earthquake tears the ground apart. Curious, he climbs down into the crack. Deep below the surface, he finds something impossible. A giant bronze horse. Hidden inside it is the body of a man far larger than anyone he'd ever seen. The corpse wears only one thing, a simple gold ring. The shepherd doesn't think much of it. He takes it the same way any of us might pocket an unusual coin or an old watch. It's interesting, nothing more. Days later, while meeting with other shepherds to report to the king, he absent-mindedly twists the ring on his finger, and something strange happens. The conversation continues. Without him, it's as if he never existed. No one looks at him. No one answers him. No one even notices he's gone. Confused, he turns the ring back. Suddenly, everyone speaks to him again, as if nothing had happened. Once could be coincidence. Twice isn't. He turns the ring again. Gone. Back. Gone. Back. The ring makes him invisible. Not symbolically. Not metaphorically. Completely invisible. And that's where Plato sets the trap. Because the story isn't really asking what the shepherd did next. It's asking what you would do. If you knew, without a doubt, that no one could ever catch you, who would you become? The shepherd doesn't spend years wrestling with the decision. He doesn't question whether he should use the ring. He simply realizes what it's capable of. An axe. He finds a way into the royal palace. There, he begins an affair with the queen. Together, they murder the king. And before long, the shepherd is wearing the crown. No trial. No witnesses. No consequences. The story never tells us whether he felt guilty. Because that's not the point. The point is how quickly absolute power changes someone when nothing can stop them. This story appears in Plato's Republic. But Plato isn't the one making the argument. A man named Glaucon tells the story to challenge Socrates. His claim is unsettling. People aren't good because they want to be. They're good because someone is watching. Think about it. Most of us obey laws because breaking them has consequences. We tell the truth because lies can be exposed. We protect our reputation because losing it is painful. But what if every consequence disappeared? No cameras, no witnesses, no evidence, no punishment. Would morality survive? Glaucon believes the answer is no. He argues that if anyone possessed the Ring of Gyges, they would eventually become exactly like the shepherd. Not because they're uniquely evil, but because that's what human nature does when it's convinced it can never be held accountable. Then Glaucon pushes the thought experiment even further. Imagine two men. The first is selfish, dishonest, and completely corrupt. But everyone believes he's a hero. He's respected, praised, trusted. His reputation is spotless. Now imagine the second man. He's genuinely honest. He always does the right thing. But through terrible luck, the world believes he's a criminal. He's mocked, punished, rejected, even though he's innocent. Now ask yourself, which one would most people choose to be? The corrupt man with a perfect reputation, or the good man who spends his life hated for crimes he never committed? Glaucon's point is brutal. If your instinct is to choose the first man, then maybe what we truly value isn't goodness at all. Maybe it's simply being seen as good. Just when you think Glaucon has made his strongest point, his brother speaks. His name is Adeimantus. And instead of asking why people do bad things, he asks something far more uncomfortable. How were we taught to think about being good in the first place? Think back to childhood. What did parents usually say? Be honest. Be kind. Do the right thing. It sounds simple enough. But Adeimantus asks us to listen more carefully. Why are children told to be honest? Because honesty is beautiful, or because honest people are trusted, offered better opportunities, respected, and admired? And why are they warned against lying or cheating? Because those things slowly destroy your character? Or because, if you're caught, you'll lose everything? Your reputation, your friends, your future. The lesson, he argues, isn't really be good. It's be careful. Don't get caught doing the wrong thing. And if possible, make sure everyone believes you're a good person. That's the reward society keeps handing out. Then Adeimantus goes even further. He points to the stories and religious traditions people grew up with. Even there, he says, the message often isn't what we think. Again and again, the stories suggest that someone can live badly and still win back the favor of the gods, offer enough sacrifices, say the right prayers, perform the right rituals, and somehow the scales are balanced again. Whether that's true isn't his point. His point is much darker. Even the stories that were supposed to teach justice sometimes make it seem like justice itself can be negotiated, as if morality were a debt you could eventually pay off. If that's how people are raised to think, then the Ring of Gyges becomes even more dangerous, because now it doesn't just remove the fear of laws or public opinion, it removes the last thing many people believe they're answerable to. If goodness has always been about rewards and punishment and reputation, then what happens when every one of those disappears? That's the question Adeimantus leaves hanging in the room. Not whether people know the difference between right and wrong, but whether they would still choose what's right if there were absolutely nothing left to gain. Here's why this story has survived for more than 2,000 years. Because it was never really about a ring. The ring is just a mirror. It doesn't create greed. It doesn't create cruelty. It simply removes the fear of being seen. And that's a very different thing. The truth is, you've probably held the Ring of Gyges before. Not literally, but in moments that felt close enough. Think about it. That message you almost sent because you knew no one could trace it back. The extra money you kept because the cashier didn't notice. The mistake you could have admitted, but didn't. The search history you'd never want anyone to see. The lie that was so small, no one would ever question it. None of those moments changed the world. But every one of them asked the same question. Who are you when nobody's looking? That's the real test. And here's the part most people misunderstand. Glaucon isn't asking whether you'd become a murderer or a tyrant if you had the ring. Most people wouldn't. At least, they don't think they would. His question is much smaller, much quieter, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. If every consequence disappeared, would you become just a little more dishonest? A little more selfish? A little less kind? Because character rarely disappears all at once. It erodes, one choice at a time, one excuse at a time, one moment where you tell yourself, no one will ever know. Then comes the trap. The one Plato quietly set more than 2,400 years ago. If your answer is, I think I'd still be a good person, then ask yourself one more question. How do you know? If you've never had absolute freedom, if you've never lived without consequences, then you've never truly tested your own character. Maybe you're honest because honesty matters to you. Or maybe you're honest because you've never had the chance to get away with being dishonest. That's an uncomfortable thought, but that's exactly where Plato wants you. Not certain of your goodness, not ashamed of yourself, just honest enough to admit that you don't actually know, because a character that has never been tested is still just a belief, not proof. Here's something most retellings never mention. Plato didn't invent the name Gyges. He borrowed it, and the people reading the Republic would have recognized that name immediately. Long before Plato wrote about the magical ring, there was already another story about a man named Gyges. This one came from the Greek historian Herodotus. And unlike Plato's version, there was no magic, no invisible shepherd, no enchanted ring, just human weakness. The story begins with a king named Candaules. He was obsessed with one thing, his wife's beauty. He admired her so much that simply telling people about it wasn't enough. He wanted someone else to see it with their own eyes. So he ordered his most trusted bodyguard, a man named Gyges, to hide inside the royal bedroom and secretly watch the queen undress. Gyges refused. He knew how dangerous the idea was. He begged the king to change his mind, but the king insisted. So that night, Gyges hid in the shadows. He watched, and just as he was slipping away, the queen saw him. She said nothing. Not that night. Not the next morning in public. Instead, she summoned Gyges in private. Then she gave him a choice, a brutal one: kill the king and take both the throne and her hand in marriage, or die for what had happened. Gyges chose the throne. The king was murdered. The bodyguard became the new ruler of Lydia. A dynasty was born. Now think about what Plato does a century later. He takes the name of a real king, already remembered for a hidden crime, betrayal, and a stolen throne, and builds an entirely new story around him. The affair becomes invisibility. The hidden witness becomes a magical ring. But the ending stays almost exactly the same, because Plato isn't trying to tell history. He's making a point. Human beings didn't need magic to betray trust. They were already doing it. The ring doesn't create corruption. It simply removes the obstacles that usually keep it hidden. That's why Plato chose the name Gyges. His audience already knew how the story ended. The ring wasn't the cause. It was just the perfect excuse. Up to this point, Glaucon seems to have won. His argument is convincing. Give anyone enough power, remove every consequence, and sooner or later, they'll choose themselves over everyone else. So how does Socrates respond? Surprisingly, he doesn't deny that the ring would tempt people. Instead, he asks a different question. What would using the ring do to you? Not to your reputation, not to your bank account, not to your career, to you. Because according to Socrates, there's a huge difference between looking like a good person and actually being one. Think about someone who only follows the rules because they're afraid of getting caught. Are they really in control? Or is fear making every decision for them? Socrates says that's not freedom. That's dependence. The moment fear disappears, so does their morality. The ring doesn't corrupt them. It exposes them. It reveals that their character was never steering the wheel. It was borrowed from the people watching. Then Socrates makes an even deeper argument. Imagine your mind as a kingdom. Inside it are three different voices. The first is desire. It wants comfort, pleasure, more money, more food, more power, whatever feels good right now. The second is spirit. Craves respect, status, victory, recognition. It wants to win, to be admired, to prove itself. And finally, there's reason, the quiet voice that's supposed to lead them both. The part that steps back, looks at the bigger picture, and asks, what is actually worth choosing? According to Socrates, a just person isn't someone who never feels temptation. Everyone does. A just person is someone whose reason remains in charge. Their desires still exist. Their pride still speaks, but neither gets to make the final decision. An unjust person is the opposite. Desire quietly takes the throne. Reason doesn't disappear. It simply becomes a lawyer. Instead of deciding what's right, it starts inventing excuses for whatever desire already wanted. And that's where the Ring of Gyges becomes so revealing. Because once nobody is watching, the kingdom doesn't suddenly change rulers. It simply reveals who was ruling all along. Then Socrates delivers his boldest claim. He says the most powerful person in the world, the one who gets everything they want, answers to no one, and never hears the word, no, isn't the happiest person. He's the most miserable, because a life ruled entirely by desire never reaches satisfaction. Every victory creates another craving. Every pleasure demands a bigger one. Every success becomes the starting line for the next obsession. There's no peace, only appetite chasing appetite. So the Ring of Gyges isn't really a story about invisibility. It's a mirror that reveals which voice inside you is actually in control. Once the audience disappears. And according to Socrates, that's the only judgment that truly matters. You might expect the story to end with Plato. It doesn't. The Ring of Gyges keeps resurfacing, because the question it asks never really goes away. About 300 years later, in ancient Rome, a statesman named Cicero is writing a book for his son. It's not meant for philosophers. It's not a collection of abstract ideas. It's practical advice, a guide for how to live a good life. And when Cicero reaches one of the oldest moral questions, is it ever acceptable to do something wrong if no one will ever find out? He goes back to the Ring of Gyges, not because he believes the story happened, but because the question behind it refuses to die. Cicero imagines having that same power, the ability to lie, to steal, to gain wealth, to rise in status, without anyone ever discovering the truth. Then he reaches a simple conclusion. A truly good person wouldn't use the ring, not because they're afraid of punishment, not because they're worried about their reputation, and not because they're trying to impress anyone. They wouldn't use it because the kind of person they want to become matters more than anything they could gain. Think about how remarkable that is. Across centuries, across different civilizations, the same question keeps returning. First, there's the historical story of Gyges in Lydia. Then Plato transforms it into a philosophical thought experiment in Athens. Then Cicero carries it into Rome as practical advice for everyday life. Different cultures, different languages, different eras, yet they all keep circling the same unsettling idea. Who are you when no one is watching? Maybe that's just a coincidence. Or maybe they all discovered something about human nature that's as true today as it was then. Because technology has changed, governments have changed, society has changed, but the human mind hasn't changed nearly as much as we'd like to believe. That's why the Ring of Gyges still feels so modern. It isn't trapped in ancient Greece. Every generation finds its own version of the ring, and every generation is forced to answer the same question all over again. So after all of this, after the stories, the arguments, the history, we're left with one final question. Not, what would you do with the ring? That's too easy. The real question is this: how much of your character belongs to you, and how much belongs to the audience watching you? It's an uncomfortable thing to think about, because every day we make choices that nobody else sees. The shortcut no one notices, the lie that never gets exposed, the promise quietly broken, the truth we keep to ourselves because it's easier than admitting it. No magic ring is required. Life gives us small moments of invisibility all the time. Moments where there are no cameras, no witnesses, no consequences. At least, that's what we tell ourselves. Maybe that's why the Ring of Gyges has survived for over 2,000 years. Not because people believe in magic, but because everyone recognizes the temptation. Plato never tells us whether the shepherd ever regretted what he became. He leaves that part unwritten. Maybe because regret was never the point. The point was the choice each of us keeps making again and again, often without realizing it. Maybe character isn't revealed in the biggest decisions of our lives. Maybe it's revealed in the smallest ones. The ones no one applauds. The ones no one remembers. The ones no one will ever know happened. And maybe that's why this ancient story still refuses to disappear. Because it asks a question that no one else can answer for you. Not your friends. Not your family. Not the law. Not even philosophy. Only you. So here's the question I'll leave you with. If every consequence disappeared, if every camera went dark, if every witness vanished, if no one could ever find out, who would you choose to become? Maybe you'd still be exactly the same person. Maybe you wouldn't. The unsettling truth is that most of us can never be completely certain, because none of us have ever truly worn the ring. Long pause, and perhaps that's exactly why Plato never gave us an answer. He wanted us to keep asking the question. Even 24 centuries later, we still are. Maybe the Ring of Gyges never existed. Maybe there was never a magical ring hidden beneath the earth. But that was never Plato's point. The ring is just an excuse to ask a question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not whether you're a good person when the world is watching, but whether you're still the same person when no one is. Because every day, life hands us our own version of the ring. A moment where no one will notice. A choice no one can verify. A decision that leaves no evidence behind. Those are the moments that quietly define us. Not the ones we post online. Not the ones people applaud. The invisible ones. And maybe that's why the story has survived for more than 2,400 years. Empires have risen and fallen. Religions have changed. Technology has transformed the world. Yet the question remains exactly the same. Not, what would you do if you were invisible? But, who are you when nobody is looking? Perhaps we'll never know the answer with complete certainty. Maybe none of us ever can. Because none of us will ever wear the Ring of Gyges. But tomorrow, and the day after, life will quietly offer us something close enough. And when it does, you won't be choosing between right and wrong. You'll be choosing who you become. The ring was never the test. You were. The Republic, Book 2. Written around 375 BC. The question still remains.